The 11th Annual UW System Symposium for Undergraduate Research and Creative Activity was held at the University of Wisconsin-Parkside in Kenosha, Wisconsin, Friday, April 29th, 2011. The system-wide event brought together some of the best and most creative students from all campuses in the UW system. The symposium gave close to 300 students a chance to present the results of their independent work. These undergraduate students are creating new methods of teaching, innovate business and legal practices, and new communication techniques. Poster displays, oral presentations, gallery exhibits, and artistic performances were used to convey the results of their work. More than 140 research projects were depicted in poster presentations. Topics ranged from education and the economy to science and sociology. Janelle Topensky from the University of Wisconsin-Parkside did a poster presentation on financial crisis and commercial banks.
This project relates to commercial banks and the effect the financial crisis had on their balance sheet.
What did your research show?
And found out that before the crisis, a lot of variables acted just the way you would think. Unemployment related to the number of default loans and the number of failed banks. After the crisis occurred, it all changed and everything kind of correlated within the balance sheet itself. And a lot of that correlated with off-balance sheet activities.
What's the next step?
The next step of this study would be to create, either to go back and de-aggregate the data and start looking at individual banks using this as a benchmark, or more likely it would be to create an econometric model.
Katie Witz from the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh did a poster presentation on single mothers on primetime TV.
What I found is that there is nowhere near as many single moms as there are married moms. And the general attitude is very subtle but negative.
What was the most interesting aspect of your research?
That's a single mom of 2 children. And she is kind of framed in an irresponsible, frazzled, just really kind of out of control with her life. And her older brother is married, has 2 kids, supportive wife. And by contrast, their family is very wholesome, responsible, down to earth.
What's the next step?
So I think writing to producers would be the first step. Getting single mothers on board, getting people on board to kind of make people aware that TV watching is more than just a passive activity. We are learning many, many things while we watch it.
Lindsay Nowak from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee did a poster presentation on the scale literacy of students in intro college chemistry.
So far it shows that the decimal form is being used better than the scientific notation. They're understanding it a little bit better.
What was the most interesting aspect of your research?
Using the head-mounted eye tracker is really cool because it has the camera facing the eye and then the camera facing out, so you can see exactly what somebody's looking at a given time. And the picture right here shows kind of what we look at when we're going through the data on the computer.
What's the next step?
Right now I have 16 interviews. We have more back at school that I still need to analyze, and we also have expert interviews from our graduate students in the chemistry department that are going to be our expert controls. So we're going to go through those and add that to the research.
Jennifer Eggmann from University of Wisconsin-Stout did a poster presentation on factors affecting positive transitions for foster children.
We surveyed foster mothers on what they felt were the most important factors affecting positive transitions for foster children.
What did your research show?
And we hypothesized that they would find quality of home life and emotional and physical caregiver availability to be the most important factors, and our research supported this hypothesis.
What was the most interesting aspect of your research?
One of the things that I found most interesting was just like what the foster parents had to say themselves through our open-ended questions. the slowing down the transition process, having a connection still with the biological parent, that they thought that was important.
What's the next step?
Our implications for future research are just to try to work with different agencies, give them the information we found, what the foster mothers feel should be changed to the system.
Jennifer Short from the University of Wisconsin-Parkside did a poster presentation on reducing juvenile delinquency.
What does work is going to be any kind of program that involves cognitive behavioral therapy.
What was the most interesting aspect of your research?
The cognitive behavioral therapy, we didn't know anything about that. So our advisor had mentioned it to us, and then I did some research on it, and then he gave me a book to read. So I started reading that, and now I know all this different. So I'm like, now I want to do more research in just to that section.
What's the next step?
Over summer, I'll be teaching juvenile delinquents through sports how to control anger.
Nadesha Therapure from the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh did a poster presentation on parking at University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh.
My research is on parking at UW-Oshkosh. Basically, our campus is restricted by the amount of land area that we have, so we don't really have a lot of open space to build more parking lots. And building a second parking ramp on campus is going to be really expensive, so we're looking at alternatives that can be implemented on campus. And by looking at commuter behavior, we're trying to select the most suitable alternatives for UW-Oshkosh.
What did your research show?
A lot of the commuters come from the cities that are around the campus area. So most of the commuters are from within Oshkosh itself, and the other commuters are from the cities that surround Oshkosh, mainly the Appleton area, Fond du Lac, Omro, and also from Green Bay.
What was the most interesting aspect of your research?
I work at parking services at UW-Oshkosh, and a lot of people complain about the price of parking on campus. So we went into this research project thinking that parking is overpriced or parking is too expensive, but we actually found out that people are willing to pay more for convenience, even if it means a more expensive parking permit.
John Stencil from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee and Brittany Saylor from the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater worked together on a poster presentation on fabric and whole rock chemical analysis of sheared rock.
Our research involves an area, northern Wisconsin, it's called Mountain. It's a pretty unique area because you can find these outcrops of granite. The last recorded date was 1.8 billion years old, and what makes them unique is they're the only outcrops pretty much left up there. Most of them have been covered up by glacial till, so you can't see them, which makes this a really nice area.
What did your research show?
We found that our samples are actually granodiorite, in that they're kind of they're known as S-types, which is like a sedimentary also. And we found that out not too long ago, so our project is taking a different route. So we don't really have the best results yet. We're doing a lot of future work.
What's the next step?
Well, we have this one sample right here. It kind of shows our whole basis. Here you can see there's clear lineations. And then straight across this line, which is called a shear zone, you have this blobby mass. So that means these rocks were here and they were sheared. And then this second part intruded in and kind of just bumped up and changed the whole rock mineralogy. So we're going to try to get back to this area, find some more shear zones, and do some more chemical analysis to figure out what's going on and how they differ from different areas.
Kaylee Short and Caitlin Scharf from the University of Wisconsin, Barron County, did a poster presentation on gender in advertisements.
All right, we did this as a class project, and like the whole point of our project was to take pictures in magazine ads that we see as, you know, normal. Like you look at pictures of men and women magazines, and there's very typical, stereotypical poses where men are you know, powerful in their stance and fully dressed, and whereas women are, you know, not quite as dressed and typically in like sexually available positions. And what we did is we did a recreation of them. So you want to lift up a few?
Yeah, this is one of them. You can see the female and then have the male. Another good one. This is one of our favorites. You can see the woman and then the male recreation of it. And let's try this one here too. You can see the picture of the man, strong, powerful, and then so you can kind of just see by looking at them, it just looks almost in a way silly to see the opposite gender playing in these magazine ads.
And we're proving that there is like a difference in them because by how people react when they look at the recreation, you know, the shows that's, you know, strange to them to see those, you know, that sex in that pose or in position, and so.
How did you begin your research?
One thing we did in class was we talked about Irving Goffman, and he had made a DVD, and he also has a book about gender and advertisements, and that's what really like struck our attention about it. And so we decided to kind of see if what he was saying was true or not, and if it really looked absurd. So that's why we did this project.
What was the most interesting aspect of your research?
In the making process, we had a photographer help us out, and while actually trying to take the recreation poses, how like funny it was to us to like watch the person stand like that or pose like that. That would be mine. Is they're actually creating it, you know, and you know, we're proving it over and over again that there is a difference. There's a gender difference, and that, you know, you don't like recognize it until you are seeing, you know, the opposite.
What is the importance of your research?
I think it's very important to see that there is a gender difference because you know, things are so different, whereas men are always in these powerful positions, fully dressed, and women are not. You know, they're in these sexually available positions and not like ready to take action. And I think that it just shows that, you know, we need to be aware and watch out that, you know, there is a gender difference. And, you know, I think that overall it's not only in our magazines, but it's also in life. There's little differences in life that, you know, those are gender differences, and I think that just being aware of them can help, you know, keep moving forward with things.
A number of creative presentations explored various forms of visual communication. One presentation even challenged our ability to become more self-reliant and less dependent on technology. Nicholas Kamensky from the University of Wisconsin-Parkside did a creative presentation on My Cuba Experience, Discovering the Real Cuba.
When I went there, I looked at some artifacts and stuff. And my study just basically focused on the tour we did, where we studied architectural aspects of the city, archaeological, and we also helped the people with a few projects.
What's the next step?
Look more into how the native influence is still present in that area.
John Palas from the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh and Juan De Hoyas from the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point did a creative presentation on how to become self-reliant again in an age of digital dependence.
Juan and I, we met up in Stevens Point, and we both found that we can easily, throw things at one another and expect to get, we can really drive off each other and just work improvisationally and spontaneously, and maybe not as much on a performance level, we've never really done that, but on a level of just creativity, we're on a very good par. And from there, the idea of just cardboard, it's 650 pounds of cardboard per person in America is used per year. So I mean, it's just it's a huge consumption deal, and to see actual human forms come from it and display the idea of where is it, like what is inside that vessel, like is there a self, is there a, there's a lot of Gandhian thought behind it, I guess, and Jungian thought, Carl Jung, Krishnamurti. A lot of these minds have been, I for one have just really like to pick at that and put it into art form. And how about you, Juan?
Yeah, I mean, the use of the cardboard, provides lots of metaphor when you make anything to a human form out of something that's not human tissue. It's interesting, and it makes you wonder what it is, what it does, why are we looking at it. It makes you think about it, if you want to or not. And as far as how this all came together, I think, like we were mentioning before, everyone notices the surge of technology and its use and its implementation in our daily lives, and we just wanted to talk about it, show it off, and see if people can relate and maybe feel the same things that we were thinking about. So,
Oral presentations touched on subjects such as what Korea can teach us about math education, to the timely topic of state budgets and economic crises. Suro Dital and a group of students from the University of Wisconsin-Superior did an oral presentation on forecasting coal consumption in the U.S.
So if we keep consuming coals and maybe gas in the same rate as we're doing right now, in the future, maybe 10 or 20 years from now, we will run out of those reserves.
What was the most interesting aspect of your research?
United States production of everything is actually going down, and makes perfect sense as our forecast says that the coal consumption will be going down for like maybe 4 or 5 more months, and it has gone down for the last 2 or 3 years, and it resembles exactly with the current economic situation.
What's the next step?
Well, depending on how the economic situation turns out, if there will be more scientific researches on biodiesels, maybe other alternative fuels, see how they develop their researches and base our research on their research.
April Ross and a group of students from the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire did an oral presentation on the impact of free coupons given to families.
And so what we wanted to do is evaluate the USDA's Fresh Fruits and Vegetables program.
What did your research show?
We evaluated the project, found that it works. If you put a fruit or vegetable in front of a child, they will eat it most of the time. And that actually in school lunch programs, that's where they're getting most of their fruits and vegetables, is if they eat at school.
What was the most interesting aspect of your research?
So we wanted to see if we could change the behaviors of kids eating at home. And we got $15 of coupons that we gave their families each week for 4 weeks, and they were allowed to redeem them at 7 area grocery stores. And we then tracked what they were eating during that time and then how many coupons were being used.
What's the next step?
We're trying to get to them younger. That's why the program is in elementary schools. It's very difficult to change the attitudes of families right now.
Luke Shaleski from the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater did an oral presentation on quantitative research in higher education.
My project is titled Quantitative Research in Higher Education, and it's really looking at students' emotional intelligence as well as their self-authorship and student engagement.
What did your research show?
Self-authorship is really when you can internalize new values or beliefs as part of who you are.
What was the most interesting aspect of your research?
Typically, a lot of research says that this process doesn't happen until you're out of college as a young adult, but I guess this research really says 18, 19, and 20-year-olds go through this self-authorship process where they experience new things and they internalize new different values and beliefs.
What's the next step?
The next step is going to master's degree and really pursuing a self-authorship, more senior thesis that can be looking at gender and how that applies to self-authorship. So I think males and females really make meaning out of their life experiences differently.
The 12th Annual Symposium for Undergraduate Research and Creative Activity takes place Friday, April 27th, 2012 on the campus of the University of Wisconsin-Parkside.